Good morning to all and welcome to the session, the Hindu Editorial Analysis for Proficiency in English. Today's editorial is all about voter turnout in two states. One is Punjab, the other one is Uttar Pradesh. It's all about the voter turnout, the analysis, and based on that, a few inferences. When it comes to vocabulary, there are some important words, definitely worth learning, important from the exam point of view. And besides the editorial, today you're going to work on errors, fillers, para jumble, not idioms, as usual, editorial words. Now let us go to the editorial vocabulary first and have a look at the words that go with used in the editorial. What is the first one here? Turnout. Turnout, it could be a phrasal verb, it can be used as a noun. Turnout in this context means the number of people attending or taking part in an event, especially the number of people voting. It has two different meanings. One goes with, in this context, number of people turning up and they vote. The total number we use the expression turnout. The other meaning, just to appear, show up, turn up, and the number of people attending a particular event. When we talk about all the people together, we use turn out. Individually, generally we say turn up. He has turned up, he has not turned up. You can also use show up. The second one, fragment. Fragment has got different meanings. In this context, a small part or broken off or separated from something. In this context, the different parties, a small part broken off or separated from something. Anti-incumbency. First, you have to know the word incumbency. Someone who is in power or the ruling government, the regime. Anti means against. Anti means before. That you have to recollect. Anti incumbency is a sentiment in favor of voting out incumbent politicians, sending out those who are in power. Then we use the expression anti incumbency against the ruling party. Spurt, a sudden marked burst or increase of activity or speed. A sudden increase of activity, we use the word spurt. Patronage. Patron has many meanings. Patronage also. Supporting. Generally, it means support someone or something. The support given to an organization by someone. Brethren, fellow Christians, or members of a male religious order, any religion for that matter, but a male religious order members, we use brethren. Frustration. The feeling of being upset or annoyed as a result of being unable to change or achieve something. When people try for something, they don't get it, obviously, they get frustrated. Polity. I use this regularly. An organized society, but in this context, a state as a political entity. State, it has two different meanings. One meaning, a sovereign country. Another meaning, an administrative unit, a state like Punjab, a state like Uttar Pradesh. Erstwhile, we have got many a time. Former, erstwhile means former. Arch enemy, this is an important word. A person who is extremely opposed or hostile to someone or something. Usually, when it comes to sports, when it comes to elections, parties, we use the word arch enemy, means the major, the most important, or a person who is extremely opposed or hostile. Discourse, now this word is in the limelight. A written or spoken communication or debate. Why is it in the limelight? Today, if you watch programs on different channels, you come across religious discourses, publicly discussing something, written or spoken, in this context, spoken, a religious discourse. That's an important expression. Repeal is a legal term, it goes with the government. Revoke or annul, a law or act of parliament, to cancel in a way, revoke, repeal. Viable, usually the typical combination commercially viable. Viable means feasible, capable of working successfully or feasible. Incumbent, official or regime currently holding office. A particular official is in office, incumbent. A particular chief minister, a particular prime minister, incumbent. And party also, government also, we use the same term. Resentment, we have got this in the recent past many a time. Bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. Indignation also means the same, a feeling of anger because you feel you haven't been treated fairly. Electorate, all the people in a country or area who are entitled to vote in an election. All the people together, we use the word electorate. Those who have the right to vote. Damp has two different meanings. One meaning a little wet, damp walls, but there's another word, dampen. Dampened means what? Make less strong or intense. You can also say less enthusiastic. Dampened his spirits, a typical combination. This we have got something bodes well means what? To be a sign of something good or bad for the future. But usually it has a positive connotation, something, a sign of something good for the future. These are the words from the editorial, and this editorial is all about elections in two states, one Punjab, the other one Uttar Pradesh, and the voter turnout based on that, the parties and the reasons for the voter turnout not expected to the expected level. What could be the reason? All these dimensions have been touched. How does it start? Two words, turnout indications. Turnout, a number of people taking part in elections or coming out to vote. Turnout, indications. So, turnout is good or bad. What are the indications? But what is the main idea of the editorial? A fragmented polity depresses turnout in Punjab. UP's polls indicate a closer battle. As I said, this editorial touches two states. One is Punjab, the other one is UP. A fragmented polity depresses turnout in Punjab. Fragmented polity, in this context, you should understand fragmented. It has two meanings. One, fragment means a small piece of something broken off from something else. Fragmented also means divided. Polity, a particular state, in this context, it has many meanings. A state administrative unit. A fragmented polity depresses something not good. Turnout in Punjab. So, because of the party politics, different parties, fragmented polity, the turnout in Punjab is depressing. That's what the sentence means. When it comes to UP polls, indicate a closer battle, not depressing, indicate a closer battle. If recent elections are anything to go by, this is an important expression, anything to go by. Do remember the phrase. If recent elections are anything to go by, turnout numbers are no indication of which way the mandate is swinging. Turnout numbers means the number of people who turn out or who turn up. The number we say turnout, individual we say turn up. The number of people. That is, the number is not an indication to decide which way the mandate is swinging. That means going. There's one important word over here, mandate. Mandate means what? The voice is not audible. Guys, please respond. Someone says voice is not audible. Is any problem with the audio? I don't think so. Please check your settings. I want others to respond. Is any problem with the audio? Please respond. All clear. Huh. That student, please check your settings. The sentence says if you look at the recent elections, if you have to go by the recent elections, if recent elections are anything to go by, if you have to judge based on the recent elections, turnout numbers are no indication, they're not an indication to decide which way the mandate is swinging. Mandatory has a different meaning. Mandatory means what? Compulsory. But here, mandate means a verdict. The public decide, elect a particular party, which party to be elected. That is voter mandate. Mandate means the judgment, the verdict, the decision to select or elect a particular party or a particular candidate. So, based on the turnout numbers, we cannot decide which way the mandate is swinging, means which party they're going to elect. Conventional wisdom, conventional means traditional. Conventional wisdom has been that high turnout numbers correspond to an anti incumbency effect, and indeed, a sudden spurt in voting numbers could indicate a wave in a particular direction. This context talks about the turnout is depressing. On the other hand, if you take the contrary, the based on what is opposite, large number of people go and vote. If you take that into consideration, conventional wisdom, traditional wisdom says or has been that high turnout numbers correspond to an anti incumbency. What does it mean? A lot of people go, they try to vote, they use a right to vote. That means there's something, they have something against the ruling party, against the regime. Anti incumbency effect, it is an indication of against the government, anti, ANTI, incumbency, party in power effect. And indeed, not only that, a sudden spurt in voting numbers. All of a sudden, the numbers go up. Spurt means sudden increase. Could indicate a wave in a particular direction. It could indicate a wave, the mandate wave in a particular direction in favor of a different party, not that is in power. Is it the. But with voter turnouts, especially among the poor, going up significantly in recent years across India, changes in turnout numbers offer little by way of explaining the outcome. There's a particular field called psephology. Do you remember? There's a word, psephologist. What is this? A person who predicts the election results based on some analysis. Now, here this sentence talks about, but with voter turnouts, especially among the poor, going up significantly in recent years across India, changes in turnout numbers offer little by way of explaining the outcome. Again, the same idea is being reiterated based on the voter turnout, based on those numbers. You cannot decide or explain or predict the outcome. Not possible. The drop in voter turnout in Punjab from 77.4% in 2017 to 71.92% in 2022, however, indicates a certain frustration with the polity in the state. The number has come down from 77.4 to 71.92. So, what does it indicate? It indicates a certain frustration. Frustration goes with everyday English. Frustrated means what? The feeling of being upset or annoyed or angry because you're not able to achieve something or not able to do something you want to do. With the polity in the state. Polity in this context, a state as a political entity, a state like Punjab, Uttar Pradesh. In the last few months, there have been drastic changes in the party system, following the removal of Captain Amarinder Singh from the Chief Minister's post. He is leaving the Congress and joining hands with his erstwhile arch enemy, the BJP. There are two words here, rather four words. I already have explained frustration, polity. The next sentence talks about why there is frustration among the voters. In the last few months, there have been drastic changes in the party system, that is, Congress party, following the removal of Captain Amarinder Singh from the Chief Minister's post. He is leaving the Congress. Obviously, because of that, he had to leave the party. His leaving, that's an important expression. Here we have to leaving is a noun. Verb ing form used as a noun, we use the term gerund. And before that, if you have to use a pronoun, it should be in the possessive form. He is leaving the Congress party and joining hands with his erstwhile arch enemy, the BJP. There are two words over here. Erstwhile means former. Very good. And arch enemy means a person who is extremely opposed or hostile to someone or something. Usually it goes with sports, it goes with elections, parties. At the time of elections, we use arch enemy. The anger over the farm laws that were later repealed was felt the most in rural Punjab, and the farm agitations against the centre's policies should have provided a viable path for the ruling Congress to succeed. This talks about, we all know farm laws. And initially, for a long time, farmers protested. Based on that, they were later repealed. What is the meaning of the word repeal? Revoke or annul a law, act, or parliament, make something invalid, in a way, cancel. The anger over the farm laws that were later repealed, was felt the most in rural Punjab. Obviously, farmers you come across in rural Punjab, and the farm agitations against the centre's policies should have provided these farm laws and the frustration against the center or agitations against the center's policies should have provided. That's an important expression. We use this expression should have done, should have gone, should have provided to express an unfulfilled duty or a neglected action. Should have provided a viable path. Viable means feasible for the ruling Congress to succeed. In a way, it was easy for Congress to succeed because of the center's policies and the frustration of the farmers against the center's policies. But it did not happen because of internal politics. But obviously, we have to use a contrasting word, the infighting within the Congress and its belated but logical promotion of incumbent Charanjit Singh Channi as a chief ministerial candidate complicated matters for the ruling party. Ruling party is the Congress party. So here they had a chance because of the farm laws and the frustration of the farmers against the center, but the infighting within the Congress and its belated means delayed but logical promotion of incumbent. Again, incumbent means one who is holding the office, the present chief minister Charanjit Singh Channi as a chief ministerial candidate complicated matters for the ruling party. It talks about in the state of Punjab the different parties and to what extent they're going to do well or they have done well. Reports from the ground suggested that the Aam Aadmi Party was also able to capitalize on the general resentment with the two national parties and the Shiromani Akali Dal, but the fragmentation of the polity and a general lack of clarity among them over the issues that have affected the electorate seems to have dampened voter enthusiasm in the state. A lengthy sentence, but what does it talk about? In a nutshell, but before I tell the meaning of the sentence, let us have a look at the words. We have got this word in the recent past many a time, resentment, bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. When you feel someone has treated you unfairly, you feel annoyed, you feel angry. Obviously, based on that, we use the word resentment. It talks about reports from the ground suggested that the Aam Aadmi Party was also able to capitalize, encash, take advantage of, make use of the general resentment, feeling of anger because of unfair treatment with the two national parties. One is the BJP, the other one is the Congress, and Shiromani Akali Dal. That means what Aam Aadmi Party could encash or could capitalize on the resentment against the feeling of indignation against three parties. One is BJP, second is Congress, and the third is Shiromani Akali Dal. But the fragmentation of the polity. So the main idea is being reiterated. Fragmentation of the polity. Fragmentation means dividing into smaller parts. So many parties in the fray, obviously, fragmentation of the polity and a general lack of clarity among them over the issues. The parties, perhaps it talks about the parties, they lack clarity among them over the issues that have affected the electorate, seems to have dampened voter enthusiasm in the state. As I said, there are two words here. Electorate means what? All the people in a country or in this context, a state, who are entitled to vote in an election. Dampen, two different meanings. Damp means a little wet, but dampen means to bring something down, to reduce the intensity. It goes with enthusiasm usually. Dampened voter enthusiasm in the state. All these factors have dampened the enthusiasm of the voters in the state. Because of that, the number has come down from 77 to 71. In the third phase of polling in 59 seats in central Uttar Pradesh, now the editorial comes to the other state. What is the other state? It is Uttar Pradesh. In the third phase of polling in 59 seats, In central Uttar Pradesh, the voter turnout was 60.46%, marginally lower than 62% voting in 2017 in the same seats. Slightly it has come down, not significantly. As with the earlier phases, there were a higher number of voters, quite opposite here, a higher number of voters in rural areas compared to cities. A case in point being Kanpur city, which registered only a 56.14% turnout. It talks about the difference between the rural areas and the cities. Rural areas, higher number, cities, the number not at the same level. And a case in point, an important expression, being Kanpur city, which registered only a 56.14% turnout. With identity politics, welfare and patronage dominating the narrative of the elections here, urban voters seemed less enthused compared to their rural brethren, perhaps because of the lack of an adequate emphasis on civic issues in the political discourse. This talks about the reason behind the rural areas higher number and cities lower number. It could be identity politics, one reason, welfare and patronage dominating the narrative of the elections here. Urban voters seem less enthused, means not that enthusiastic, not that interested, compared to their rural brethren, an important word. It has a religious connotation. Brethren means what? Fellow Christians or members of a male religious order. Why? Perhaps because of the lack of an adequate emphasis on civic issues in the political discourse. When it comes to cities, the most important aspect, civic issues. So there was no focus on civic issues. That could be the reason. In political discourse means at the time of campaigning, canvassing, or the meetings or speeches, they did not talk about the civic issues. They talked about other things. Discourse, usually it has again a religious connotation. Now it is in the limelight, religious discourses, a written or spoken communication or debate. That said, ground reports from the three phases have indicated a closer contest in comparison to 2017, when the BJP had a field day, means a great day, sweeping district after district in the assembly polls. 2017, it was in favor of the BJP, thumping majority. This time, a closer contest. How does the editorial end? Except in Bundelkhand, there has been enough of a wind behind the sails of the opposition. The Samajwadi Party led coalition in particular, and the high pitched third phase campaigns in the potato growing areas are an indication that the election is not done and dusted. This time it is going to be very close and it is not over. It is difficult to predict which party is going to come to power. And it talks about in some areas, the Samaj opposition, the Samajwadi Party led coalition in particular, they have got, perhaps they are doing well. The relatively peaceful nature of the polls and the centering of socio-economic issues rather than religious identity bodes well, an important expression. Bode well means to be a sign of something good or bad for the future. For the next four phases of voting in India's most populous state. India's most populous state, which one is that? Uttar Pradesh. So the last sentence of the editorial says something positive. The relatively peaceful nature of the polls and the centering of socio-economic issues rather than religious identity bodes well, something good for the next four phases of voting in India's most populous state. So this is all about the editorial. Whenever you come across an editorial related to polity, do remember it is important. You may get it as a passage in prelims or mains. They may not ask in the descriptive paper. It is ruled out. But economy important, polity is also important as a passage. What is this editorial about? What depresses turnout in Punjab? The main idea of the editorial. You should be able to write. Depresses turnout in Punjab. What does a sudden spurt in voting numbers indicate? Keyword sudden spurt in what? Voting numbers indicate. They indicate something. What seems to have dampened voter enthusiasm in the state? They lost enthusiasm, they lost interest. Dampened means to make something less severe or less intense. What are the reasons behind? What bodes well for the next four phases of voting in India's most populous state, that is Uttar Pradesh? Easy to answer all these questions, provided you answer. If you write, that helps in the long run. Now let us go to error location. Five questions should not be that difficult. Try to answer the first one. The luxuries of the riches are maintained by depriving the poor of their dues. When it comes to fillers, do remember contextual awareness is very important. You should understand the context, only then you'll be able to answer or spot the error. The luxuries of the riches are maintained by depriving the poor of their dues. First, you have to understand the context. Very good. I see three or four students have responded and they've got it right. The luxuries of the riches. Here we cannot say riches. We have to say the rich. The luxuries of the rich. Here, the rich means all the rich people. The word rich is an adjective. He is a rich man, a rich adjective. But in English, we can use an adjective as a noun. When we use an adjective as a noun, you have to remember two things. There's a rule. We have to use a definite article, the, and we have to use a verb in the plural form. The rich are arrogant, the rich are whatever it is. So the and are. Here, no problem, the. But you cannot use the word riches. You have to say the rich. In this sentence, the word rich is a noun, not an adjective. That is very important. You have to know that. It is based on a particular rule. What is a rule? When we use an adjective as a noun, it should be in the same form, and we have to use a definite article, the, and the verb in the plural form. Good, that's really good. Exactly, the blind are always helpless. Orwell is one of those authors who do his best to irritate the reader. This is a good question, but easy to spot the error. Nowadays, you're asking one of those, not one of the basic form, one of those. That's an important one. And a lot of students find it difficult to spot the error. How come no response? No, no. Here, those authors, that is one thing you have to focus on. And after that, you have a clause. What is this? Clause. And this clause is about authors, plural form. Plural we use do, nothing wrong with that. But will you use his or their? Plural. Their best to irritate the reader. Nothing wrong with do. All of you listen very carefully. When we use the phrase one of those, after that, one of those students, one of those writers, one of those authors, you should tell yourself whatever the clause you see after that, the clause is about those authors, those students, those writers. That is in the plural form. The noun is in the plural form. And based on that, nothing wrong with do. Do goes with a plural noun and does goes with singular. Nothing wrong. But you cannot use his. We have to say their best to irritate the reader. You got it? Fine. Go to sentence number three. I don't know who you consider to be the best dancer. This is also a good question, but I'm sure you will be able to answer. That should not be a problem. I do not know who you consider to be the best dancer. Quite often, they ask questions based on two question words. One is who, the other one is whom. First, you have to know where to use who, where to use whom. Who goes with subject. If you're talking about a subject, who. Whom goes with object. But how do you decide? You think of the answer. Who or whom you consider to be the best dancer. Possible answer, I consider him or her to be the best dancer. Him or her, subject or object? Subject form or object form? Object forms, obviously. That means what? The question is about the object. If the question is about the object, you cannot use who, you have to use whom. As simple as that. You have to think of the answer. Based on that, you can decide who or whom. The camp beside ours has been built in 1966 by John's brother. This is also an easy one, not that difficult to answer. The camp beside ours has been built in 1966 by John's brother. Yes, that's right. Object forms, Bhavana. Go to question number 4. The camp beside ours has been built in 1966 by John's brother. It is an easy question in the sense you have it built in 1966, specific time that goes into past. Then we cannot use present perfect. We have to use past tense. Was built here, was built. Where is this? Was built. Answer is a fourth option. Oh, they have given the options here. But this question they have given was built in 1966. Not had been, was. Here you cannot use past perfect. All of you remember past perfect we use when there are two clauses, not independently. Based on the context, one can, but in the exam point of view, do remember for past perfect, you need two clauses. Here there's only one clause. The camp beside ours was built in 1966 by John's brother. Only one clause, one idea, a specific time in the past. You have to use only. This question is about past tense. No other tense you can think of. Do remember, until you are in the habit of putting off things, you cannot ensure yourself of a good future. Until you're in the habit of putting off things, you cannot ensure yourself of a good future. This is a bit difficult. Of all the 5 questions, this is to some extent difficult. How come no response? No. Until does not mean you should think of unless. Don't think from that angle. Think differently. Unless you are in the habit of putting off, that does not make any sense. Here, we cannot use a word unless. Unless means what? If you don't, you're in the habit of putting off things. That does not make any sense. Here, you have to think differently. It is not until, it is not unless. The right word is if. What is the correct word over here? If. Now you read the sentence, it makes sense. If you are in the habit of putting off things, you cannot ensure yourself of a good future. That makes sense contextually, grammatically. If you are in the habit of putting off things, you cannot ensure yourself of a good future. Here it is not until, we have to use the word if. You guys could not get it. Not easy. Because of until, you must have thought of unless. You cannot use until, you cannot use unless. You have to use if. If you are in the habit of something, you cannot think of a positive result. That's what it means. Please go to Para Jumble, very important. This is also from an international magazine. Not easy. You have to read very carefully. Put off means postpone. Yes. If you are in the habit of postponing things, you cannot ensure yourself of a good future. That's what it means. Very simple. Peru took a similar approach, then you cannot, that cannot be the first one. For example, cannot be the first one. In January, Transparency International and an NGO hold this one. The authors cannot be the first one. Its average pronoun cannot be the first one. Contrasting word cannot be the first one. When you take the elimination approach, it is quite obvious the first sentence is what? C is the first sentence. Easy to make out. In January, Transparency International, an NGO, released its annual report on corruption around the world. Second one also easy. What is the second one? Very good. E is the second one. Measured by its average index. Its average index. Excuse me. It means the annual report of Transparency International and NGO. It refers to Transparency International. Measured by its average index, corruption has not improved for a decade. CE and one more. What is the third one? Third one is also easy. Should not be that difficult. You guys got the first one, the second one. What is the third one? Not B. Third one is not B. No, no, no. Not B. Why, for example, how does for example come in the third position? Based on corruption has not improved for a decade. No, no. Look at the parts carefully. CED, who is this? Manoj has got it right. Third one is D. The author's recommendations include, it refers to the annual report. The author's, the author's recommendations include strengthening anti-corruption agencies, cracking down on financial crime, and making public spending more transparent. The recommendations. CED1 group. Recommendations of the authors, one thing. Contrasting information. We need a contrasting word. What is a contrasting word here? But. But some countries have tried a different method. They recommended strengthening anti corruption agencies, cracking down on financial crime, and making public spending more transparent. But some countries have tried a different method. Please listen very carefully. Fourth one is F. But some countries have tried a different method. That means they haven't focused on strengthening anti corruption agencies, cracking down on financial crime, and making public spending more transparent. They have tried something else. What is that? In 2011, for example, a state in Mexico created an all female traffic police unit aimed at stamping out corruption, removing corruption. B is the next one. Very good, Sai Arvind. You got it right. And the last one, obviously, Peru took a similar approach in the late 1990s. Are women really less corrupt than men? The last sentence. Are women, based on these two sentences, Mexico and Peru, The writer poses a question. Are women really less corrupt than men? It ends on that note. A separate session? Definitely, I will do that. CED, FBA. From March 1st, you're going to have a lot of videos, and one of those videos definitely how to deal with para jumbles. Let us go to fillers. We have questions today. Fillers also. I know here you're not getting enough time. One thing. Second, you should know how to deal with para jumbles. You need a few tips. I'll be providing. Wait for some time after March 1st. Then it will be easy. It will become easy for you to a great extent. But always remember, para jumbles they depend on to what extent you read, your reading habit, exposure to a variety of contexts. Very important. That's what I'm going to do. Everything is going to be. Let us not. It should be a surprise. Wait till March 1st. The weather outside was extremely pleasant, and hence was decided to. It was decided, understood. Utilize our time in watching the television, contrary information. Refrain from going out, contrary information. Enjoy a morning ride in the open. It goes with complimentary. And whatever you want, you can list out definitely. There's no separate book as such. Employ this rare opportunity for writing letters, no way related. Remain seated in our rooms in the bungalow, contrary information. What is the answer? Enjoy a morning ride in the open. Contextual awareness, you can answer. His appearance is unsmiling, but focus on the word that is used for contrast. But, however, his appearance is unsmiling. No one has responded. Second one. He looks very serious. Unsmiling, serious, same. But here, contrasting word. It should be opposite. He is uncompromising on the matters of performance, full of jealousy. You need something positive. His appearance is unsmiling, but his heart is full of compassion for others. This is the contrary information. Compassion, kindness, an important word. If you do not, your monthly expenses would, your income. Go to sentence number 3. Today, the lag time is more than 20 seconds, I suppose. If you do not, your monthly expenses would, your income. Easy to answer based on the options. If you do not spend, would gain your income. We cannot use the word gain here. If you do not save your monthly expenses, if you do not save, your monthly expenses would outwit. We don't use outwit here. That goes with persons. If you do not economize, your monthly expenses would exceed your income. This seems right. If you do not think, swallow, no. If you do not realize, does not make any sense. What is the answer? C is the answer, not B. Outwit. Outwit goes with persons. Here we are talking about expenses. That's why I say understand the context. Context is important. If you do not economize, economical, economize, thrifty, frugal, if you do not economize, what will happen? Your monthly expenses would exceed your income. Obviously, that's what happens. Answer is C. We cannot use the word outwit in this context. At the outset, do remember, swa- swallow, I don't know why they have used that word. Take something inside, swallow. When you take food, either you chew or you send it down directly. Then we use swallow without chewing. To push something inside without chewing. The other servants had to. Since Ramu alone, all the food. This is easy. Fourth one, to some extent, you can consider, but you have to look at all the options. Had to eat. Had to eat? No. Had to wait. Spoiled? You can consider. Cook. Waited cannot be. Alone. Waited all the food? No. Here the context talks about the other servants had to. What is the helping verb have to? Have to or has to present, had to past. What is a function? It is used to express an obligation imposed by an external authority or a situation. Here, situation. Because of some situation. What is that? The other servants had to starve, no food. Why? Since Ramu alone consumed all the food. Answer is be smart, smarter than someone, smarter than, better than someone. He is the one, yes. The speakers over his subject was seen through his discourse. Today, from in the editorial, we have got discourse. Have to is different, must is different. Must is used to express a personal obligation or to convey the idea something is compulsory. That is entirely different. Have to, external authority or a situation. The speakers, go to the last one. We are running out of time. The speakers mastery through his fluent discourse, efficiency, thorough discourse. You can consider this, lethargy, laziness, not relevant here. Grip over his subject was seen through his boring discourse, contradictory, cannot be considered. Skill over his subject was seen through his pleasant. Pleasantness has nothing to do with the presentation. Either the first one or the second one. Mastery because of that fluency, not thorough discourse. We have to, when it comes to public speech, public speaking, we use fluent, not thorough, not that word. Based on that, what is the answer? Answer is the first one, not the second one. Thorough discourse, no, fluent discourse. The speaker's mastery over his subject was seen through his fluent discourse. Efficiency over his subject. Mastery, efficiency, which is a better word. Mastery is a better word, not efficiency. Efficiency over his subject, no. Mastery over his subject. Answer is the first option, not the second option. A lot of students have chosen the second option, not correct. Good, all the five correct. Very good, Prasad. I appreciate that. Now let us go to the last slide. Editorial vocabulary. You should be able to get all the 10 correct. Some of the words are familiar. Turnout means what? Turnout here it is noun. Number of people participating in an event, especially in this context, elections, voting. G is the answer. Fragment, it could be a noun and it could be a verb. Fragmented, it's a regular verb. Means what? Small part broken off from something else. Answer is D. Spurt, sudden increase. Spurt, noun. Answer J. Erstwhile chief minister or any noun you can use. Obviously, it is an adjective. Means what? Former. Discourse. It could be. It is a noun. Religious discourse. Religious adjective. Discourse noun. What does it mean? A written or spoken communication. One meaning. And another meaning. Debate. I is the answer. Viable project. Commercially viable project. It is an adjective. Tomorrow, when you get selected, you become a bank officer, you use this, someone comes with a project, you see the commercial viability of that. Means what? Commercial feasibility. That combination is an important combination. Repeal, verb, means what? Revoke, annul. Incumbent, currently holding office, someone who is in power. Incumbent chief minister, incumbent minister, it is an adjective. Answer B. Currently holding office, in power. Dampen is a verb. It's a regular verb. Means what? Make something less strong. Bring down the intensity. Dampen the enthusiasm. E is the answer. A resentment. Meant resentment, obviously noun. Bitter indignation. You have got this word in the recent past. Answer is F. Has anyone got all the 10 correct? If you say yes, I appreciate. That is highly appreciable. That's all for today from the editorial. Have a nice day. Thanks for being with me till 8:52. Do remember to subscribe and share. That's very good. All the 10 correct, don't you? Who else? I appreciate all those. And after the session, go to the description of the video and click on the Telegram link, Murthy's English. And after that, you cannot do anything. You have to wait for, you'll be at the receiving end. I'll provide the a PDF. Try to